There's a long history, as you know, of trouble with succession at Disney, and that problem seemed to have been laid to rest. Iger, I thought, was doing a fantastic job, as he has done in many aspects of management, in laying the groundwork for succession, a smooth transition, highly qualified, very popular, very smart.
Welcome to the channel, everyone. In this clip, James Stewart is being interviewed regarding the failed succession planning with Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company. There's been a lot of talk about this issue, especially following the abrupt and highly publicized termination of Bob Chapek. But this clip isn't about Bob Chapek. It's from 2016, and the would-be successor? Tom Staggs. In today's episode, we're going to be digging into the leadership problems at Disney and why finding the next CEO may require bringing in new blood from outside the organization. We'll look at the flight of talent away from Disney, why this all feels so eerily familiar, and we'll wrap up with the elephant in the room, the return of Bob Iger. We've got a lot to talk about in today's episode, so let's get right into the weeds of things and pick up from where the video left off. James Stewart described Tom Staggs as a highly qualified, very popular, very smart candidate. And he's right. For those of you not familiar, he served as the company's chief financial officer from 1998 through 2010. He played an instrumental role in Disney's acquisition of Pixar and was the chairman of Disney Parks from 2010 through 2015, during which time he oversaw the $5.5 billion investment into the construction of Shanghai Disneyland. After competing head-to-head against Jay Russell for the second-in-command position, Staggs ultimately came out on top and was named Chief Operating Officer in 2015. Having beat out the next best contender at Disney, and having served in various roles at the company, he was widely considered by many, both inside and outside the organization, to be slated as the next Disney CEO. However, just 1 year later, Disney's board of directors, chaired by none other than Mr. Iger himself, expressed concern over Staggs' ability to lead the company into its next chapter. This triggered his abrupt departure from Disney, ending his 26-year career with the company. The departure of Disney's two most qualified CEO candidates ultimately paved the way for Bob Iger's contract to be extended. Iger and the board assured investors the succession planning process would continue and a qualified candidate would be identified. And if you're wondering where Bob Chapek is during this, after having worked for 15 years in the company's home entertainment division, he was tapped to be Tom Staggs' replacement as chairman of Disney Parks, a key indicator that Disney had eyes on Chapek as a potential successor. Chapek wasn't the only executive making waves. Following the strategic shift towards a direct-to-consumer business model, Kevin Mayer was named chairman of the newly formed Direct-to-Consumer and International Operations. Mayer had previously served as Disney's Executive Vice President of Corporate Strategy and played a key role in several of Disney's acquisitions, including Marvel, Lucasfilms, Pixar, BAMTech, and 21st Century Fox. As chairman of Direct-to-Consumer and International Operations, he oversaw the successful launches of both Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. Mayer was another potential successor to Iger. However, it wasn't meant to be. In May 2020, Mayer resigned from the company, and after a brief stint as Chief Operating Officer of ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, he co-founded Candle Media. And this is where things really start to get interesting, because Mayer's qualifications alone would be enough to garner excitement about a new media startup. But to sweeten the pot, the other co-founder was none other than Tom Staggs. With two Disney media Goliaths at the helm, their startup brought up billions of dollars of financing, with which they went on an acquisition spree. They acquired Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine and Moonbug Entertainment for $3 billion. Here you can see some of their most popular programming, and for those listening, I'd call out the notorious kids programming CoComelon and Blippi, which, if you have a young kid, you're probably all too familiar with. Now, earlier we talked about how all this leadership turmoil felt eerily familiar. For Disney history buffs, the story of a former executive leaving to co-found a successful media company will ring a bell. Let's take a trip down memory lane and talk about Michael Eisner. Prior to the reign of Bob Iger, Eisner ran the show at Disney from 1984 through 2005. While Eisner accomplished many great things for the company, his succession was not a smooth one. Similar to the flight of talent occurring underneath Bob Iger, Many of Disney's most prominent potential successors were driven away during Michael Eisner's reign due to his insistence that no one was good enough to replace him. His behavior ultimately led to him being stripped of his chairman role and forcefully replaced in 2005. While all the succession turmoil is enough to bring on the feeling of deja vu, the plot thickens because one of the executives that Eisner had driven away from the company also went on to co-found a media startup, a company you may have heard of, DreamWorks Animation, formerly known as DreamWorks SKG, with the SKG representing the initials of the founders, Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen. Katzenberg had served as the chairman of Walt Disney Studios from 1984 to 1994 before being driven away from the company. DreamWorks, of course, has proven to be a huge success. It has created some of the highest grossing animated films of all time, including Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon. Now, will Tom Staggs and Kevin Mayer be able to grow Candle Media into the media juggernaut like Katzenberg did with DreamWorks? I don't know. But what I do know is that this whole story has remarkable resemblances to what has occurred in the past, and I find that fascinating. So, where does all this leave us? Well, Bob Iger is back. Chapek was fired just 5 months after the board unanimously agreed to extend his contract, and there's no clear internal candidate to replace Iger. This leads me to believe that the next Disney CEO may have to come from outside the organization. And that's okay. Bob Iger joined Disney after the company acquired Cap Cities ABC, and Michael Eisner came from Paramount Pictures. So in the event an external candidate is brought on as the next Disney CEO, there's been a precedent established that it can be done successfully. The only thing that we can say for sure is that the next few years are bound to be interesting. Being the CEO of Disney is one of the most desirable jobs in the world, and whoever comes next will need to be a dynamic leader capable of balancing shareholder interests with that of Disney consumers. If you found today's video informative, please give the video a like and join me next week for another episode of Into the Weeds, where we'll be looking at the acquisition of 21st Century Fox. That's all for now. Take care.